Hi, students. I am going to do some readings for you from our unit on David. And I want to tell you that, since we're going through the readings before we have class, I'd normally prep the readings for you a little bit in class. What I want us to focus on in David is the ancient concept of kingship. When we get to Homer, we're going to see a lot of similarities in how kingship is thought of, but some important differences. Um, One thing to consider is, what does kingly authority mean? It seems to be a type of power that is fairly primitive, maybe unilateral, focused on war. Machiavelli says in his discourses on Livy that all societies begin when there is some man of exceeding physical strength and power, um, or I guess maybe just strategy, who can fight and protect the unit, right? The unit that has formed specifically to live together out of a search for safety. And so we should ask questions about what this institution looks like, where it comes from, and kind of note specific things about it and about the character of David, because that's the flip side of this. Is we can look at monarchy from the perspective of the institution, ancient monarchy, and the institution of it. But the story of David gives us something really interesting, which is insight into the soul, the psychology, um, the personal life, private life of the ruler. I'd also just point out, as we're getting started, that you should pay careful attention to why David has authority. Um, when we're looking at Homer, when we're looking at Plato, ask yourself, why in these different accounts of rule is the ruler legitimate? What gives them the authority, or what about them makes them worthy of authority? And David's actually kind of interesting case, because he's very powerful, but he's not a god. And in fact, it's really clear that he's subordinated to the divine. And that's different from a lot of ancient systems. So, anyways, I'm going to start reading. And with all that in mind, just go ahead and listen. And I'm going to do all the David readings, so not just the ones for the first day. Okay, so this is going to be kind of in an odd order. um, for the most part, it's chronological, but there is a part where I interject an older passage with the prophet Samuel about kingship, and so that's going to be a little abrupt, but everything else will just kind of flow. It's the sequence, right, of the narrative. And the Lord said to Samuel, "How long are you going to grieve over Saul, when I have cast him aside from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I'm sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have seen me among his sons a king." And Samuel said, "How can I go? For should Saul hear, he will kill me." And the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you, and you will say, 'To sacrifice to the Lord I have come.' And you will invite Jesse to the sacrifice. And I myself shall let you know what you must do, and you will anoint me the one that I say to you." And Samuel did what the Lord had spoken, and he came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town came trembling to meet him. And they said, "Do you come in peace?" And he said, "In peace. To sacrifice to the Lord I have come." Purify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." And Jesse purified his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. And it happened when they came that he saw Eliab, and he said, "Ah, yes, before the Lord stands his anointed." And the Lord said to Samuel, "Look not to his appearance and to his lofty stature, for I have cast him aside." So one thing to point out, we haven't read, Saul's story, but Saul is the previous king, and he was appointed by Samuel. Saul is really tall. Like, they say that he's taller than all the Israelites. So here Samuel notices this one, and he says, "Oh, it must be him." And the text refers to his stature. And the Lord says to Samuel, "Look not to his appearance and to his lofty stature, for I have cast him aside. For not as man sees does God see, for man sees with the eyes, and the Lord sees with the heart." And Jesse called Abinadab, and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, "This one too the Lord has not chosen." And Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, "This one too the Lord has not chosen." And Jesse made his 7 sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen these." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are there no more lads?" And he said, "The youngest still is left, and look, he is tending the flock." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Send and fetch him, for we shall not sit to eat until he comes here." And he sent and brought him. And he was ruddy, with fine eyes, and goodly to look on. And the Lord said, "Arise, anoint him, for this is the one." And Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord gripped David from that day onward, and Samuel rose and went to Ramah. And the Spirit of the Lord had turned away from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord had struck terror in him. And Saul's servant said to him, "Look, pray, an evil spirit from God has stricken terror in you. Let our Lord, pray, speak. Your servants are before you. We shall seek out a man skilled in playing the lyre, and so, when the evil spirit of God is upon you, he will play, and it will be well with you." And Saul said to his servants, "See for me, pray, a man who plays well, and bring him to me." And one of the lads answered and said, "Look, I've seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, skilled in playing, a valiant fellow, a warrior, prudent in speech, a good-looking man, and the Lord is with him." And Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, "Send me David your son, who is with the flock." And Jesse took a donkey laden with bread and a skin of wine and a kid, and he sent them by the hand of David his son to Saul. And David came to Saul and stood in his presence, and Saul loved him greatly, and he became his armor-bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, "Let him stand, pray, in my presence, for he has found favor in my eyes." And so when the Spirit of God was upon Saul, David would take up the lyre and play, and Saul would find relief, and it would be well with him, and the evil spirit would turn away from him. Okay, next chapter. And the Philistines gathered their camps for battle, and they gathered at Soko, which is in Judah, and they encamped between Soko and Azekah at Ephes Dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel had gathered and encamped in the valley of the Terebinth, and they deployed to do battle against the Philistines. The Philistines took their stand on the hill on one side, and Israel took its stand on the hill on the other side, with the ravine between them. And the champions sallied forth from the Philistine camps. Goliath was his name, from Gath. His height was 6 cubits and a span. A bronze helmet he had on his head, and in armor of mail he was dressed, and the weight of the armor was 5,000 bronze shekels. And greaves of bronze were on his legs, and a spear of bronze between his shoulder blades. the shaft of his spear like a weaver's beam, and the blade of his spear 600 iron shekels. And his shield bearer went before him, and he said, and he stood and called out to the Israelites lines and said to them, why would you come forth to deploy for battle? Am I not the Philistine, and you are slaves to Saul? Choose you a man and let him come down to me. If he prevail in battle against me and strike me down, we shall be slaves to you. But if I prevail and strike him down, you will be slaves to us and serve us. And the Philistine said, I am the one who has insulted the Israelite lines this day. Give me a man and let us do battle together. And Saul heard, and all Israel with him, these words of the Philistine, and they were dismayed and very frightened. And David was a son of this Ephrathite man from Bethlehem in Judah named Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man in the days of Saul was old, advanced in years. And the 3 oldest sons of Jesse went after Saul to the war. And the names of his 3 sons who went to the war were Iliad, the firstborn, and the secondborn, Abinadab, and the third Shammah. Abinadab, and the third Shammah. As for David, he was the youngest, and the 3 oldest had gone after Saul. And David would go back and forth from Saul's side to tend his father's flock in Bethlehem. And the Philistine came forward morning and evening and took his stand 40 days. And Jesse said to David his son, take prey to your brothers this ephah of parched grain and these 10 loaves of bread, and rush them to the camp to your brothers. And these 10 wedges of cheese you shall bring to the captain of the 1,000, and you shall see if your brothers are well, and you shall take their token. And Saul and they and all the men of Israel are in the valley of the Terebinth, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose early in the morning and left the flock with a keeper, and bore the provisions and went off as Jesse had charged him. And when he came to the staging ground, the army going out to the lines was shouting the battle cry. And Israel and the Philistines deployed line against line. And David left the gear that was on him with the keeper of the gear, and he ran to the lines and came and asked his brothers if they were well. As he was speaking to them, look, the champion was coming up from the Philistine lines. Goliath, the Philistine from Gath, was his name. And he spoke words to the same effect, and David heard. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were very frightened. And a man of Israel said, have you seen this man coming up? Why, to insult Israel he comes up. And the man who strikes him down, the king will enrich with a great fortune. And his daughter he will give him, and his father's household he will make free of levies in Israel. And David said to the men who were standing with him, what will be done for the man who strikes down yonder Philistine and takes away insult from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should insult the battle lines of the living God? And the troops said to him to the same effect, thus will be done for the man who strikes him down. And Iliad, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke with the men, and Iliad was incensed with David, and he said, why is it you have come down, and with whom have you left that bit of flock in the wilderness? I'm the one who knows your impudence and your wicked impulses, for it's to see the battle that you've come. And David said, what now have I done? It was only talk. And he turned away from him towards someone else, and he spoke to the same effect. And the troops answered him with words like the ones before. And the words David had spoken were heard, and they told them to Saul, and he fetched him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail him. Your servant will go and do battle with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, you cannot go against this Philistine to do battle with him, for you are a lad, and he is a man of war from his youth. And David said to Saul, a shepherd has your servant been for his father with the flock. When the lion or the bear would come and carry off a sheep from the herd, I would go out after him and strike him down and rescue it from his clutches. And if he would rise against me, I would seize his beard and strike him and kill him. Both lion and bear your servant has struck down, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them. for he has insulted the battle lines of the living God." And David said, "The Lord who has rescued me from the lion and the bear will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." And Saul clothed David in his own battle garb and put a bronze helmet on his head and clothed him in armor. And David girded his sword over his garments, but he was unable to walk, for he was unused to it. And David said to Saul, "I cannot walk in these, for I'm unused to it." And David removed them. And he took his stick in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the creek and put them in the shepherd's pouch he had, the satchel, and his slingshot was in his hand, and he came forward toward the Philistine. And the Philistine was drawing near to David, the man bearing the shield before him. And the Philistine looked and saw David, and he despised him, for he was a lad and ruddy with good looks. And the Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you should come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said, "Come to me, that I may give your flesh to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the field." And David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with sword and spear and javelin, and I come to you with the name of the Lord of hosts, God of the battle lines of Israel, that you have insulted. This day shall the Lord give you over into my hand, and I will strike you down and take off your head. And I will give your corpse and the corpses of the Philistine camp this day to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the earth. And all the earth shall know that Israel has a God. And all this assembly shall know that not by sword and by spear does the Lord deliver, for the Lord's is the battle, and he shall give you into our hand." And it happened as the Philistine arose and was drawing near David, that David hastened and ran out from the lions toward the Philistine. And he reached his hand into the pouch and took from there a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine in his forehead. And the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. And David bested the Philistine with sling and stone, and he struck down the Philistine and killed him, and no sword was in David's hand. And David ran up and stood over the Philistine and took the sword from him and pulled it out of its sheath and finished him off and cut off his head with it. And the Philistines saw that their warrior was dead, and they fled. And the men of Israel and Judah rose and shouted and gave chase to the Philistines until you come to the ravine and until the gates of Ekron. And the Philistine dead fell on the way to Sharim and as far as Gath and Ekron. And the Israelites came back from pursuing the Philistines and looted their camps. And David took the Philistine's head and brought it to Jerusalem, but his weapons he put in his tent. And when Saul saw David sallying forth toward the Philistine, he said to Abner the commander, "Whose son is the lad, Abner?" And Abner said, "By your life, king, I do not know." And the king said, "Ask you, pray, whose son is the youth?" And when David returned from striking down the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, the Philistine's head in his hand. And Saul said, "Whose son are you, lad?" And David said, "The son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite."